What happens when a well-known guest completely loses their composure during a live TV interview, forcing the host to make a decision that no one expected, and leaving millions stunned? Today, you'll see one of the most unforgettable moments in morning television. Don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments, because this story is unlike anything you've seen. Michael Strahan had been the face of Good Morning America for years, and he believed he had seen it all: difficult guests, technical mishaps, awkward exchanges. But nothing prepared him for what unfolded on this particular morning. Producers were thrilled to secure Meghan Markle for an exclusive sit-down. On paper, it was supposed to be routine, a standard promotional interview designed to fill airtime and spark online attention. As Michael reviewed his questions in the makeup chair, everything appeared normal. The studio buzzed with its usual pre-show rhythm: lighting adjustments, MIC checks, staff moving quickly to keep things on schedule. Meghan arrived on time, completed hair and makeup without issue, and exchanged polite greetings with crew members. Her publicist had provided a list of approved topics: nothing unusual, nothing especially controversial. 5 minutes to air, the floor director called, and Michael walked to the interview set. 2 chairs angled toward each other sat under studio lights, with a small table holding fresh flowers in between. Morning sunlight streamed through the large windows, creating a calm, polished backdrop. Meghan settled into her chair, adjusted her outfit, and checked her reflection in the monitor. She smiled as the sound technician clipped on her MIC. Everything looked set for a smooth segment. The countdown began. Michael switched seamlessly into broadcast mode, the same confidence that had made him a trusted TV presence for years. Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Strahan, and joining us today is a very special guest. We're excited to welcome Meghan Markle to talk about her latest work and initiatives. His trademark smile beamed at the cameras. Thank you for having me, Michael, Meghan replied, her voice measured and familiar to viewers. I'm glad to be here. The opening minutes ran flawlessly. Michael asked about her charitable work, upcoming projects, and social causes. Meghan responded clearly and professionally, delivering polished answers that touched on all the expected points. The atmosphere in the studio was calm. Producers watching from behind the cameras nodded, pleased with how seamlessly it was going. But then the tone shifted. Following his notes, Michael asked what seemed like a simple follow-up: her experiences with different media outlets and how she approached interviews across various platforms. Well, Michael, Meghan began, her voice suddenly sharper. It's important to recognize that not every interview is the same, and not every interviewer has the skill to handle conversations with the level of care they require. Michael raised his eyebrows slightly but stayed composed. Guests often critique the media, so this didn't seem unusual. Sensing an opportunity for a thoughtful discussion, he pressed a little further. That's an interesting point. Could you expand on that? In your view, what makes for a strong and effective interview dynamic instead of the reflective answer he anticipated? Meghan's expression grew noticeably more serious. She leaned forward, lowering her voice in a way that shifted the entire room's energy. What I mean, Michael, is that there are interviewers who understand complex issues, and there are others who are better suited to lighter, less demanding topics. Sports commentary, for example, requires a very different skill set than addressing matters of genuine social importance. The remark lingered in the air, and Michael immediately sensed the atmosphere in the studio had shifted. Behind the cameras, producers exchanged uneasy looks. This was moving in an unscripted and unhelpful direction. Michael, however, had years of live television experience. Choosing to address the comment calmly yet directly, he said, "I appreciate that view, Meghan. I'd add that many of us in broadcasting have covered a wide range of subjects throughout our careers. The strength of this format is that we can explore diverse topics and learn from our guests' expertise." Instead of softening, Meghan reinforced her criticism, her tone sharper. "That's exactly my point, Michael. This tendency to oversimplify serious matters, to treat every issue as if it carries the same weight. When I come on a program to discuss real issues that affect people's lives, I expect to speak with someone who understands the seriousness, not someone whose primary background is sports scores and game highlights." Michael's jaw tightened, though his professionalism held. He had dealt with tough guests before, but rarely had anyone questioned his background so directly on live TV. Camera operators hesitated, unsure if they should cut away. The studio grew silent except for the hum of equipment and Meghan's escalating tone. "Meghan, I think there may be a misunderstanding," Michael replied evenly. "We invited you here to have a respectful discussion about your work. I'm not sure why the hostility, but perhaps we can focus on the issues you want to highlight." Rather than de-escalating, Meghan seemed to view his response as weakness. She leaned back, shook her head, and said, "This is exactly what I mean, Michael. The unwillingness to engage with hard questions, the quick retreat to safe, surface-level conversation when the discussion gets challenging. It's this kind of timidity that makes some media figures unfit for meaningful dialogue." The insult was now unmistakable. Michael's co-hosts at the main desk exchanged shocked glances. The floor director signaled urgently to the control room, uncertain whether to cut to commercial or continue broadcasting the confrontation. Michael inhaled deeply. He had built his reputation on professionalism, adaptability, and patience. But this moment was different. He realized that being overly accommodating was only encouraging the behavior. "Meghan, I'm going to stop you right there," he said firmly, maintaining control of his tone. "I've shown you nothing but respect since you arrived, and I offered you this platform to share your message. What you're doing now is not only unprofessional, it's disrespectful to our team and to the viewers at home." For a moment, it seemed his direct response might reset the conversation. Instead, Meghan grew more agitated. Her posture shifted forward, her tone rising. "Disrespectful," she repeated. "What's disrespectful is pretending that all opinions carry equal weight. What's disrespectful is asking someone with lived experience and genuine insight to treat shallow questions as serious journalism." Michael, visibly testing his patience, tried once more to redirect. "If there are specific topics you'd prefer to cover, or questions you think would add more value, I'm willing to go there. But I won't allow continued personal insults toward me, my background, or the work of this team." The offer only fueled her determination. Meghan leaned forward again, eyes narrowing. "This is the problem with people in your position, Michael. You think changing the subject solves the issue, but the issue is competence. You can't sidestep the fact that you're out of your depth in discussions of substance. This isn't about topics, it's about intellectual capacity." The studio fell into a heavy silence. Even the steady background noise seemed to fade. Michael's expression shifted from patience to contained anger. For the first time, the cracks in his composure were visible. "Are you seriously questioning my intellectual capacity on live television?" Michael asked, his voice low but controlled. "Are you really sitting here, on my show, suggesting that I am inferior to you?" Meghan appeared encouraged by his anger. She leaned back with a faintly smug look, as if satisfied with her position. "That I'm not suggesting, Michael, I'm stating. There are people capable of handling complex, nuanced discussions, and there are others better suited to lighter material. There's nothing wrong with knowing your limits. But there is a problem with pretending those limits don't exist." Michael studied her for a long moment, his jaw set and his hands gripping the chair. Everyone in the studio could see he was making a decision. Michael's voice carried a weight that immediately commanded the studio. "Let me be clear, Meghan, and I want you to listen carefully. I've been in broadcasting for over 20 years. I've reported on natural disasters, political elections, human interest stories, and breaking news that shaped the world. I've interviewed presidents, Nobel laureates, activists, artists, and yes, athletes. Because they, too, are people with meaningful stories worth telling." Meghan tried to cut in, but Michael raised his hand and continued, his tone steady and growing more assured. "You came here today as my guest. I treated you with respect and professionalism. I prepared thoughtful questions, I gave you a platform to share your message, and I've remained patient, even as you've spent several minutes insulting not just me, but everyone who works on this program. And now you've chosen to question my intellect." In the control room, producers debated their next move. Some pushed to cut to commercial immediately, while others argued they should let Michael finish. The decision was made to keep broadcasting, partly because this was becoming an extraordinary television moment, and partly because interrupting now could make matters worse. Michael rose from his chair, his presence towering over Meghan, who suddenly appeared smaller and less certain. His movements were deliberate. His words were firm, measured, and unmistakably final. "That I've had enough of this, Meghan. This interview is over. Not because I can't handle tough conversations, but because I refuse to allow this platform to be used for disrespect and personal attacks disguised as discussion. You're done here." For the first time since the interview began, Meghan looked unsettled. She glanced around the studio, realizing perhaps for the first time that her behavior might carry consequences. When her eyes returned to Michael, there was a flash of hesitation. "You can't just end an interview because you don't like my answers," she protested. But her voice lacked the sharp confidence it had carried earlier. This is supposed to be a professional exchange. Michael responded without hesitation, his authority clear. You're right, it was supposed to be professional. But you turned it into something else. You insulted my intelligence, my experience, and my team. That's not meaningful dialogue. That's arrogance and disrespect. The tension in the studio had reached its peak. Meghan's polished composure began to unravel as the weight of the moment sank in. She looked from face to face, perhaps hoping for support, but found only shock and disapproval. Her earlier confidence gave way to unease. "Michael, I think you're overreacting," she said, her voice now carrying a desperate edge. "We're having a passionate discussion about important issues. Isn't that what good television is? Honest conversations that challenge boundaries." Michael shook his head, unmoved. His tone remained calm but carried absolute finality. "No, Meghan. A genuine discussion requires respect and good faith. What you've done is launch personal attacks under the pretense of insight. You didn't challenge my questions, you challenged my character. And there's a clear difference." Meghan made one last attempt to justify herself. "I was only trying to raise the level of the conversation beyond superficial pleasantries," she insisted, though even she seemed to recognize how weak the defense sounded. "Real progress sometimes requires difficult honesty about our limitations." Michael's reply cut through with precision. His confidence had returned, and every word was sharp. "Difficult honesty? Is that what you call suggesting that my background in sports makes me unfit to interview you? Is that your idea of raising the level of discourse, insulting my capacity for serious journalism? Because from where I stand, that's not honesty. That's arrogance, pure and simple." The studio went silent, broken only by their voices. Camera operators kept filming, fully aware they were capturing a moment that would be remembered long after. In the control room, producers worked frantically to decide what to do next as the confrontation unfolded live. Meghan made one last attempt to regain control, her voice now carrying a pleading tone, a striking contrast to the sharp confidence she had displayed earlier. "Michael, I think we're both getting a little heated here. Maybe we should step back and look for common ground. I never intended to offend you personally. Perhaps I could have worded some of my points more carefully," but Michael had already moved past the stage where polite wording could mend what had unfolded. His expression carried both disappointment and firm resolve. When he spoke, every word underscored his decision. "Meghan, the moment for careful language was when you first sat in that chair. The time for common ground was when I welcomed you to the show and gave you every opportunity to share your perspective respectfully. You made a different choice. You chose to make this personal. You chose to be insulting. And you chose to treat this platform and everyone behind it with disregard." He paused briefly, turning toward the camera as though addressing the viewers directly, then looked back at his guest. "I've been doing this long enough to know the difference between a tough conversation and a personal attack. I've interviewed people I disagreed with, people with strong opinions, people who pushed back on my questions, and I've always found a way to make those exchanges work because they were built on mutual respect. What happened here today was not that." Meghan opened her mouth as if to reply, but Michael continued, his tone now stronger and more authoritative. "You questioned my capability. You dismissed my professional background. You implied I wasn't qualified to conduct this interview. And you did all of this as a guest, on my show, addressing my audience. That's not challenging dialogue, it's poor conduct, and I won't accept it." His finality made clear the conversation was over, but Meghan seemed unwilling to accept it. She remained seated, glancing around the studio as if hoping for support or a chance to continue. "So, what now?" she asked quietly. "You're cutting this short just because you didn't like my tone." Michael's response was immediate, direct, and left no room for debate. "What happens now is that you leave. This interview is over. This segment is done. Gather your things and go. I've given you more opportunities than you deserve to conduct yourself professionally, and you chose otherwise. I'm not giving you another chance to insult me or anyone else here." For a moment, Meghan sat in stunned silence, struggling to process the reality of being asked to leave. When she finally rose, her movements were unsteady, a striking contrast to the confident presence she had projected earlier. "This is unprecedented," she said, her voice a mix of disbelief and indignation. "I've never been treated like this in an interview." Michael's final response was calm and measured, the voice of someone completely certain in his decision. "Maybe that's because you've never acted this way during an interview before. Or maybe other hosts were willing to tolerate behavior I will not. Either way, this conversation is finished." Meghan gathered her belongings and walked toward the exit. Security discreetly accompanied her. Michael turned back to the camera. His expression had softened, but his voice still carried the weight of what had just happened. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll continue with the rest of today's program. Live television doesn't always go according to plan, but we will always maintain the standards of respect and professionalism that you, our viewers, deserve. The camera held on him for a moment longer, capturing the blend of resolve and disappointment that reflected the extraordinary scene. Then the show cut to commercial, the studio silent as everyone absorbed what they had just witnessed. What do you think of Michael Strahan's handling of this difficult situation? Was he right to end the interview? Or should he have tried another approach? Subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what you would have done in his position.